Sticks and Stones, the Irish Identity. I am 5'11". I weigh around 170 pounds. I have brown hair, green eyes, and no real distinguishing marks. I'm heterosexual, atheist, liberal, and white. I don't shave as often as I should, and I have pale Irish skin. I smoke, and I always wear a suit. I drive a small black car, and I don't drink much alcohol. I prefer cats to dogs. I don't know what that makes me, but I suspect that it makes me what I am. When I was 17, I decided that I wanted to be Jewish. Like most Roman Catholics, I had only the vaguest notion of what this might entail. I stopped being good at sports and frequented the only kosher butcher in the city. How he blushed for me, the poor man. I could never understand why no one took me seriously. I could never understand why I should not simply decide such questions for myself. Why was I such a goy? Who had decided that this should be so? Like that of most citizens of Belfast, my identity is the subject of some local dispute. Some say I'm British, some say I'm Irish. Some even say that there's no way I'm 5'11" and that I'm 5'10" at best. In many ways, I'm not permitted to contribute to this debate. If the controversy is ever satisfactorily concluded, I will be whatever the majority of people tell me I am. As a quotidian absolute, nationality is almost meaningless. For an Italian living in Italy, Italianness is patently not much of a distinction. What really gives nationality its chiaroscuro, its flavor, is the little dash of hatred and fear. Nobody really knows or cares what they are until they meet what they don't want to be. Then it's the time for the flags and guns to come out. So when the airport cops ask me what I am, how do I explain that I live in the northeastern segment of an island, sliced like a cheap pizza and with as many titles as a bar full of yuppie cocktails? Ireland, Northern Ireland, Britain, Ira, Ulster. How do I explain how little that would tell them? I suppose I could tell them that I live in a place where people have killed and died in an interminable fight over the names they should call themselves and each other. In Belfast, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will blow you to pieces on a regular basis. I could tell them about the self-defeating eugenic templates of racial purity by which no human being still living on the island can be properly deemed Irish. That the English and the Scottish have been here a long time, and that we're all smudged by now. Café au lait, mulattoes, half-breeds, spics, wops, and dagos. I could tell them that I don't really understand the question. Irishness is unique amongst the self-conscious nationalisms. A self-conscious Frenchman bores everyone. A self-conscious American is a nightmare. And a self-conscious Englishman makes you want to lie down in a darkened room. But a self-conscious Irishman is a friend to the world, and the world listens attentively. The reviews are always good. There's a global appetite for Irishness that is almost without parallel. Nationalistic self-obsession is corrupt, corrosive, and bogus enough without this extra angle. When well received, this fake concoction of myth and bullshit is reflected in the mirror of imprecise goodwill and sentimental foolishness. This in itself produces further distortions which are then seamlessly incorporated into the genuine article. Over the years, I've watched the fundamental concepts of what it is to be Irish being altered by common currency American errors. Here in the old country, when we hear that New Yorkers are marching in green-kilted bagpipe bands, an entirely Scottish phenomenon, on St. Patrick's Day, we immediately look around for somewhere to buy green kilts and bagpipes. Our racial authenticity is an extremely negotiable commodity. Yet, I've always believed that such Americans have it just about right. Their ideas of Irishness are as fake as a hooker's tit, but then so are ours. To understand all things Irish, you must understand something fundamental. Everyone knows that Ireland is the land of myth, and myth is a beautiful and resonant word. It sounds so profound, so spiritual. There is something visceral in it. Our myth-making is vital to the self-imposed standardized norms of nationality that are current here at home. Catholics are Irish, and Protestants are British, poor things. The common assumption that the Irish language, Irish music, and Irish history are pure Catholic monoliths, and the oft-suppressed expression of the indigenous culture, ignores the truth that the Irish linguistic, musical, and cultural revivals were the product of 19th century Protestant historicism. Everything we say is myth. The lies are old and dusty. The waters are muddy, and the truth long gone. Even our understanding of our own history, you know the kind of thing. Perfidious Albion, 800 years of oppression, etc. Teems with bullshit. King William of Orange waged war in 17th century Ireland and is still a Catholic-baiting Protestant icon who causes trouble here. No one remembers that he was blessed by the Pope. Wolfe Tone is a much-loved historical rebel leader who sailed with the French army to liberate Catholic Ireland. No one mentions that he was defeated by a Catholic militia. The President of Ireland called on a German minister to express his official condolences after Hitler's suicide at the end of World War II. Nobody wrote any songs about that. In some ways, the Irish tendency for romancing can be seen as harmless, almost charming. It is, after all, what produces our leprechauns, our fairy rings, all our beguiling fakery. But it also produces people who will murder for lies they only half believe, and certainly never understand. For the Irish have always armed their ideas. We don't have any white lies here anymore. We only have the deadly barbaric type. Given the wildest differences in latitude and climate, it is remarkable how countries can remind you of one another. In cold March Manhattan, the air is as thick, dark, and injurious as any Berlin winter. In Paris, the rain falls and stains the pale stone with the same dispiriting grace you find in Cambridge on most days of the year. London can look and feel like everywhere. If true of the places, how much truer of the people? Quod erat demonstrandum, and then some. We are a pretty poor species. Even the most gifted of us, the wisest and most studious of us, are weak-minded. We toss aside our Pushkin and read Judith Krantz. We watch goofy TV shows and asinine movies. We can't help liking big noises, coloured lights, and pictures of naked people. Our beliefs are often fantastic alloys of fear, self-interest, prejudice, and ignorance. As Tolstoy gloriously demonstrates, our finest moments of heroism, selflessness, and grandeur are usually founded on the meanest egotisms and vanities. Our notion of the sublime is laughable. In acts of worship, many of us pay homage to some form of invisible man who mimics us in the pettiest detail. Apart from our uncharacteristic capacity for love, a mistake, a design flaw, we're a shambles. It is the things we say that most prove what monkeys we still are. We are driven to generalize, to sweep on through, to prognosticate, to diagnose. Typically male, we say, typically female. That's the problem with rich people, we opine. The poor were ever so. Gentlemen prefer blondes. Fuck right off, I can't help thinking. Our most outrageous banalities are reserved for questions of race and nationality. This is how the French behave, we say. How do we know? Have we met them all? Have we asked any of them? Millions of people are summoned and dismissed in a few moments of robust fatuousness. I'm 5'11". I weigh around 170 pounds. I have brown hair, green eyes, and so on. Irish or British is very far down on my list, somewhere below my favorite color. Nonetheless, I must concede that nationality is tenacious. People have real stamina when it comes to this business. I must further concede that Irishness is a great arena for disquisitions on national identity. Because the Irish conflict is internecine, it has nothing to do with the English anymore. Definitions of Irishness have particular charm. Nationalities primarily define themselves by what they're not. The Swiss are not German, the Scottish are not English, and the Canadians are definitely not American. But the Irish make internal distinctions as well. Some of the Irish aren't properly Irish, some of the Irish aren't even vaguely Irish. In pursuit of the mantle of absolute Irishness, brother kills brother, and sisters look on and applaud. A few years ago, I had an apartment on a leafy South Belfast street called Adelaide Park. A police station was being rebuilt across the street from my building. The original had been flattened by a bomb a few years before. It was a controversial building site, naturally. Apart from their well-known attacks on the policemen, soldiers, prison officers, and almost everyone else, the IRA liked to target construction workers who helped build police stations. Thus, the site was guarded round the clock by the police. For nearly 6 months, there were always a couple of cops standing in my driveway, all peaked caps, submachine guns, and high anxiety. This was okay in the spring. It was fine in the summer and manageable in the fall. But as winter set in, the position of these guys became more and more unpleasant. It was windy and cold, and it rained for months. As night fell, I would look out my apartment window and watch the damp roses. It was obviously not a good gig. For weeks I debated whether or not I should take them cups of coffee. It was more complicated than it might sound. Policemen and soldiers here are unlikely to accept such things from the public now. 25 years of ground glass, rat poison, and Drano in friendly cups of tea discouraged them from accepting such largesse. Not long before, a woman had handed some soldiers a bomb in a biscuit tin, in a charming incident near Derry. Additionally, of course, there might have been swathes of people willing to do me grief for being nice to the police. Policemen are usually Protestant, and I myself am customarily Catholic. They couldn't have known that I was a Catholic, but they would have been suspicious. In this country, the big haters can't really tell each other apart. How we envy those who hate black or white people. That obvious difference, that demonstrable objection. It was a small thing, a minor transaction, an unimportant detail. The weeks passed, the wind blew, and the rain rained. I didn't hand out any coffee. July 1997.